Constable Neil Brophy saw a problem the moment he pulled into the Rideau Centre parking garage on a Tuesday afternoon in late October. He saw a woman in her 50s standing near the elevator bay on level 3, holding a coffee and looking at her phone. He saw natural hair, a quilted vest, sensible boots. He saw someone who, in his estimation, did not belong in that corner of the garage, the reserved section, the one with the small gold signs that said Management and Ort Forzies, Guest Only. What Constable Brophy did not see was the uniform hanging in the back seat of the Volvo, parked directly behind her. He did not see the service ribbons, or the rank insignia, or the name tag that read Coronel A. NWOSU. He did not see the citation for meritorious service she had received from the Chief of the Defence Staff 3 years earlier. He did not see any of that, because he had already made up his mind. Constable Brophy was 11 years on the force with the Ottawa Police Service. He was the kind of officer who showed up at community meetings and shook hands and smiled for the newsletter photographer, and then went back to his patrol and did exactly as he pleased. He had a habit of adjusting his belt when he was annoyed, a habit so ingrained it had become unconscious, a tell that anyone who had worked with him long enough could read. He adjusted it now as he climbed out of his cruiser. Colonel Adora Nwosu was 51 years old. She had served 27 years in the Canadian Armed Forces, rising from second lieutenant to her current rank through a combination of strategic intelligence work, 2 deployments, one in Cyprus, one in Mali, and a reputation within the Department of National Defence for being, as one general had once put it, the person you call when the situation is already bad and you need it to stop getting worse. She was currently on a 3-day pass between postings, killing time in Ottawa for a Monday flight to Kingston for her new position at the Royal Military College. She had arranged to meet her nephew for lunch at the food court. She was early. She was parked in the spot her nephew had reserved through his employer, a property management firm that handled the building's commercial tenants. She had the parking pass on the dashboard. She had her coffee. She had 40 minutes to wait and nothing particular on her mind. She was watching a video her sister had sent, their mother attempting to FaceTime for the first time, her thumb over the camera when she heard the cruiser. She didn't look up immediately. People who have spent decades in structured environments learn quickly to assess threat by sound alone, and the sound of a single cruiser pulling slowly into a parking garage at 12:40 on a Tuesday did not register as urgent. She finished the clip, smiled, pocketed her phone, and raised her eyes. The constable was standing about 6 feet away. He had not said anything yet. He was doing the thing with his belt. Afternoon, she said. Neutral, polite. This area's reserved, Brophy said. He did not say hello. He did not say ma'am. He said it the way a person says something they have already decided is true, and are merely announcing. I know, she said. My nephew works for Carland Property Group. He's got a pass for the spot. It's on the dash. Brophy glanced at the car without moving toward it. That his vehicle? It's mine, she said. He put the parking authorization in my name. I'm going to need to see that. She considered him for a moment. Not with hostility. With the particular patience of a woman who has spent her life in rooms where she was underestimated, and has learned that patience is not weakness but strategy. She walked to the Volvo, opened the passenger door and retrieved the laminated authorization card. She held it out. Brophy took it, looked at her. This says, Adora Nwosu. That's me. He turned the card over. You got ID? She reached into her vest pocket and produced her driver's license. He took that too. He looked at the license. He looked at the parking card. He looked at her. What's your business here today? The question landed in the space between them like something dropped from a height. She tilted her head slightly. I'm meeting someone for lunch. Who? My nephew. His name. I don't see how that's relevant, Constable. The belt. The adjustment. It's relevant because I have a report of a suspicious person in this section of the garage, and I'm trying to establish whether you're the person described. She looked at him steadily. What was the person described as doing? He didn't answer that. Because I've been standing here for 8 minutes, she said, holding a coffee and looking at my phone. If that's the suspicious behavior, then I'd like to understand what specifically you're investigating. Ma'am, I'm asking you a straightforward question, and I've answered it 3 times, she said. I'm Adora Nwosu. That's my vehicle. That's my parking authorization. I'm waiting for my nephew. I have not committed any offense that I'm aware of. Something shifted in Brophy's face. Not embarrassment, it was too early for that. Something closer to the feeling a man gets when the situation is not going the way he scripted it. He was used to a particular sequence of events. He made the approach. He asked the questions. The person, whoever the person was, got nervous, or got loud, or got compliant. They did not get calm. They did not stand there with their coffee and ask him to articulate the legal basis for his inquiry. "I'm going to ask you to wait while I run this," he said, holding up the license. "You can run it," she said. "You'll find it comes back clean. I'll be here." He walked back to the cruiser. He sat inside for longer than it should have taken. She could see him on his radio. She drank her coffee. A family walked past with a stroller, the father glancing at the cruiser, and then at her, and then away. Brophy came back. Something about his posture had changed, but only slightly, the way a man's posture changes when he has received information that complicates his position, but has not yet decided to accept it. "License checks out," he said. "Good. I'm still going to need to confirm the parking authorization with the property company." "You're welcome to," she said. "Their number should be on the card." He looked at the card again. He did not call. "Why don't we move this conversation to the entrance area?" he said. "Out of the reserved section. I'm not in anyone's way." "Ma'am, constable," she said, and there was something in her voice now, not louder, not sharper, but with a different quality. The voice of a person who has given an order in a sandstorm and had it followed. "I am parked legally in an authorized space with documentation on the dash. I have identified myself, provided my license, and answered your questions. Unless you are detaining me, I am going to finish my coffee and wait for my nephew." "Are you detaining me?" Brophy's neck went red. It started just above his collar and moved upward. "Don't make this difficult. I'm not making anything difficult," she said. "I'm asking you a specific legal question. Am I being detained?" It was the wrong one, and somewhere beneath the reflex and the ego and the 11 years of doing things a certain way, he probably knew it, but he made it anyway. "Turn around," he said. "Hands behind your back." She went very still, not with fear, with the kind of stillness that comes from a person who has been in worse rooms than this and knows that the next 30 seconds matter more than the next 30 years of this man's argument. "I'm complying," she said clearly, turning. "I am not resisting. I am complying." He cuffed her. The coffee cup fell. The lid popped off, and the coffee spread across the concrete in a dark, spreading stain. From the far end of the parking level, a young woman with a grocery bag had stopped walking. She was holding her phone up. Brophy did not notice, or he did not care. He walked Colonel Nunwasu to the cruiser, opened the back door, and put her inside. He did not check the back seat of the Volvo. He did not look at the uniform hanging there. The dark green of the Canadian Forces dress uniform, the rank slides on the shoulders, the row of service medals on the breast. He just closed the car door. Inside the cruiser, the air smelled of pine air freshener and old coffee. Colonel Nwosu sat with her wrists behind her back straight, her breathing even. She had been in an armoured vehicle in 40-degree heat, with a blown tyre and 2 junior officers who were losing their composure. She had been in a room in Bamako with 3 generals and a translator who kept making errors, and a ceasefire hanging on the next 40 minutes. She had been in harder places than the back of a police cruiser, in a Rideau Centre parking garage. She was not afraid. She was, if anything, thinking about sequencing. Her phone was in her pocket. Brophy had not taken it. That was his first mistake among several. She could not reach it with her hands behind her back, but she did not need to. Her nephew was going to walk into that parking garage in roughly 20 minutes, looking for a woman who was no longer standing by the elevator, and he was going to find an empty space and a coffee stain and a parking authorization on the dash of an unlocked car. And her nephew, Marcus, 24, second year at Carleton, and possessed of an instinct for trouble that she privately attributed to her own genes, was going to start making calls. She waited. The garage was quiet. Brophy sat in the front writing something. Through the windshield, she could see the Volvo, the uniform visible through the rear window if you looked at the right angle. She wondered if he had seen it. She concluded he had not. She thought about her mother's thumb over the FaceTime camera. She almost smiled. Marcus found the car 11 minutes later. She knew because she heard him before she saw him. He had always walked loudly, even as a child, a particular kind of confident footfall, and she heard him say, "Auntie?" And then, a beat later, the sound of a voice gone flat and serious, in the way of someone whose body has understood the situation before the brain has caught up. She saw him through the cruiser window. He looked at the car. He looked at the coffee stain. He looked at the cruiser. He looked at her through the glass. She gave him a single, deliberate nod. He pulled out his phone and walked away from the cruiser. She watched him press the phone to his ear, pacing in a tight circle the way he did when he was anxious. And she thought, good, make the call, do it right. He made 3 calls. She would find out later who they were. The first was to his mother. The second was to a woman named Paulette Achibi Sinclair, a family friend who happened to work in the office of the Member of Parliament for Ottawa Centre. The third was to the Canadian Forces Legal Assistance Line, a number he had in his phone for reasons connected to a different situation 3 years earlier involving his father's service records, which he had never deleted. Brophy brought her into the downtown station. The booking officer, a woman named Constable Tremblay, looked at the paperwork and then looked at Nwosu and then looked at the paperwork again. She asked, quietly, what the charge was. Suspicion and failure, said. Tremblay wrote it down. She did not look convinced. They took Nwosu's belonging. They gave her a plastic bin. They walked her to a holding room that smelled of institutional cleaning products and something underneath that no amount of cleaning ever fully removed. She sat down. She folded her hands on the table. She thought about the sequence. The door to the holding room opened 37 minutes after she sat down. The officer who entered was not the booking officer and was not Brophy. He was a man in his 40s in plainclothes, with the particular demeanor of someone who has been interrupted at something important, and is now measuring, very carefully, how much of that to show. He placed a folder on the table and did not open it. Colonel Nwosu. Yes, she said. He did not introduce himself immediately. He looked at the folder. Then he said, I'm Staff Sergeant Dominic Lepage, Professional Standards. He paused. I've been asked to come down. Who asked you? A brief hesitation. Several people have expressed concerns about this situation in a short period of time. I'd like to understand what happened. I'd be happy to explain, she said. She was precise and sequential. She gave him times, positions, the specific wording of the questions asked, and the answers she provided. She did not editorialize. She did not raise her voice. She described the parking authorization, the license, the moment of arrest, and the uniform hanging in the back seat of her vehicle. Lepage's expression did not change, but he turned the folder over once, a small involuntary movement. The uniform is in the vehicle, in the back seat, she said. Dress uniform, full medals, rank slides visible from outside. I'd have thought he might have noticed. A pause. You're currently what rank, Colonel? Colonel, she said. 06 equivalent, posted to RMC Kingston as of next week. He wrote something down. He stood up. I'll be back in a few minutes, he said. Can I get you anything? My phone would be helpful, she said, and I believe I've been here long enough that I'm entitled to a call if I want one. He nodded and left. What happened in the next 90 minutes, Colonel Nwosu experienced only secondhand, through the opening and closing of doors, and the audible quality of voices in the hall. Raised, then quickly lowered, then raised again. She had spent enough of her career outside closed doors to know what was happening on the other side. At one point, she heard Brophy's voice clearly. I didn't, she was. Nobody told me. She drank the water that Tremblay brought her. She waited. When the door opened again, it was Lepage, and the station's duty inspector, a woman who introduced herself as Inspector Carol Beaumont-Forsher. The inspector's handshake was firm, and her expression was controlled in the way of a person managing something significant. Colonel Nwosu, Inspector Beaumont-Forsher said, I want to begin by apologizing. All right, Nwosu said. What happened today does not reflect the standards of this service. You were subjected to an unlawful arrest. The charges are being withdrawn immediately. Your belongings are being returned, and a formal complaint process has been initiated. Nwosu said nothing for a moment. Against Constable Brophy? Yes. She looked at the inspector. I'd like to know what the outcome of that process typically looks like. Beaumont-Forsher's jaw tightened slightly. That would depend on the findings of the investigation. I won't make promises I'm not authorized to make. I appreciate that, Nwosu said. I'm also going to be speaking to a lawyer. The Force's JAG office has already been contacted. A brief silence. We understand, Beaumont-Forsher said. They walked her out through the main entrance rather than the side door. Her belongings were in the plastic bin. Someone had found her coffee, or tried to. The cup was there, empty. She picked up her phone, 14 messages. A missed call from a number she recognized as belonging to the military legal assistance duty officer. Marcus was in the lobby. He stood up when he saw her, and for a moment the careful composure he had managed, since the parking garage came apart slightly, the way composure sometimes does when the danger has passed, and the body finally lets itself react. He crossed the lobby in about 3 strides, and she held up a hand, not to stop him, but to signal. "I'm all right. It's fine. Are you hurt?" he said. "I'm not hurt," she said. "Auntie, You did exactly right," she said. "Who did you call?" he told her. She noted the second number, the MP's office, and thought, faster than I expected. Outside the station, on a grey October afternoon in Ottawa, with the wind coming off the Rideau Canal smelling of cold water and wet leaves, a woman with a camera was standing on the public sidewalk. She was not press. She was the woman from the parking garage, the one with the grocery bag. She had been there for an hour. "Are you the woman they arrested?" the woman said. "I was," Nwosu said. "I have the whole thing," the woman said. "On my phone, from when he cuffed you. I've been waiting." Nwosu looked at her for a moment. "Thank you," she said. "I mean that. I wasn't going to leave," the woman said simply. It didn't feel right to leave. Nwosu got the woman's name and number. She did not take the footage herself that day. She gave it to her lawyer, who shared it with the Professional Standards Office and the Canadian Forces legal team, who used it as part of the submission that 3 months later would make Constable Neil Brophy's disciplinary hearing considerably shorter than he had hoped. What followed was not a media spectacle by design, it became one by consequence. The footage from the parking garage appeared online 4 days after the incident, posted by someone who had seen it on a community Discord before it spread to Twitter and then to every major news outlet in the country by the following morning. The clip was 83 seconds. It showed a woman in a quilted vest, calm, coffee in hand, being handcuffed without apparent cause and placed in a police vehicle. It showed the Volvo, and if you knew what to look for, you could see the uniform in the back seat. What it did not show, what most people watching did not initially know, was who the woman was. That came later in the day, when someone with access to the DND Public Affairs site cross-referenced the name from the police blotter release and found the bio page, and then it moved very quickly. By the evening, the headline in the Ottawa Citizen read, "Colonel in the Canadian Armed Forces, arrested in Ottawa parking garage." By morning, it had been picked up nationally. The chief of the Ottawa Police Service issued a statement at noon that referred to a serious concern regarding the conduct of one of our officers and confirmed that a formal review was underway. The language was careful. The timing was not accidental. Brophy was placed on administrative duties pending the outcome of the professional standards investigation. His union filed a response. The response was not well received. The military legal team moved forward on a separate track. The submission to the Human Rights Tribunal of Ontario was filed within 6 weeks of the incident, citing discriminatory treatment and unlawful detention. Brophy was named personally. So was the service. At his disciplinary hearing, Brophy arrived with a union rep and the remnants of a certainty that had been eroding since the moment Lepage walked into that station and called her by rank. He had been told by the rep that he might lose paid duties for a period. He had been told it could be worse. He had not been told how much worse, exactly, and the preparation had been insufficient. The footage did not lie. The documentation of the parking authorization did not lie. The testimony of Constable Tremblay, who confirmed that she had expressed reservations about the charge language and been told to write it down anyway, did not lie. The digital forensics of Brophy's in-car camera, which showed that it had been angled slightly away from the garage bay in a manner consistent with deliberate repositioning, did not lie. The hearing took 4 days. The finding was made in 2 hours. Constable Neil Brophy was dismissed from the Ottawa Police Service for unlawful arrests, falsification of incident documentation, and conduct unbecoming an officer. He was stripped of his service credentials. He was not eligible for reapplication to any Ontario police service. The human rights proceeding reached a settlement 2 months after the disciplinary decision. The terms were not publicly disclosed in their entirety. What was disclosed, at Colonel Nwosu's request, was the amount directed to the community, $240,000, allocated to a fund for legal support for individuals from equity-deserving communities who face civil rights violations in the Ottawa region. Nwosu did not attend a press conference. She did not give interviews. When the Ottawa Citizen asked for a comment through the CAOF Public Affairs Office, the response that came back was 5 sentences long and included the line, "I am satisfied that the process functioned as it should, and I hope this outcome provides some clarity to others who may find themselves in similar situations without the benefit of the resources I had access to." That line is the one people kept coming back to. It landed in comment sections and on community boards and in conversations around kitchen tables, and the reason it landed was because it said the quiet part. The process worked, but only because she had access, because she had a nephew who knew who to call, because she had a military legal team, because she had rank and credentials and 27 years of service, and a uniform in the back seat of her car that ultimately, undeniably, changed the temperature in that station within minutes of someone going to look at it. What about the woman standing in the parking garage with a grocery bag who didn't have any of that? What about her? That question does not have a clean answer. It is not the kind of question that resolves into a tidy lesson and a subscribe button. It is the kind of question that sits, that stays uncomfortable, that asks you to hold 2 things at once: the satisfaction of seeing accountability arrive, and the knowledge that accountability required so many particular conditions to trigger. Colonel Adora Nwosu reported to RMC Kingston the following Monday. She drove herself, the Volvo loaded with her things, the dress uniform hanging in the back. She arrived at 0730. She parked in the space assigned to her rank. She had a coffee, black, from the mess hall. She did not think about Neil Brophy. She had spent 27 years making decisions about what was worth carrying and what was not, and she had made this one. She thought about the woman with the grocery bag, who had stood outside that station for an hour on a cold October afternoon because it didn't feel right to leave. She thought about what it costs a person to do that, to stop, to record, to wait. What it takes to decide that what is happening to a stranger is something you are willing to be a part of stopping, not because you know who they are, not because of rank or title or service record, but because the thing itself was wrong. That is a different kind of courage, the kind that doesn't come with a citation. If this story stayed with you, share it. There are people in your life who need to hear it. Not the version where the right person won because of who she was, but the version where a stranger with a phone and a grocery bag decided to stay. That part matters. That part might be the most important part of all.